if you will. Nice to see you. Here we are again after a little break. We're going to begin today with our motivational prayers, and instead of the meditation afterwards, I'm going to read a little bit from the dedication chapter of the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, because yesterday was the 49th day of after William's passing, and this apparently is one of the traditions. And then we will do the foundation of good qualities, the prayer. When we begin an 8-week segment, we usually do that, the sort of glance meditation on the Lanrim that was composed by Lama Tsong Khapa. So Snehi, if you'd like to put up those prayers, most people know by heart by now. Sangye Churang Soki Chognam La Changchu Baru Dagni Kyapsuchi Dagi Chunen Gipe Sognam Gi Drola Penche Sangye Dubasho. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create, through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all wandering beings. Sangye Churang Soki Chognam La Jangchu Baru Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Chunen Gipe Sognam Ki Drola Penche Sangye Drupasho. I try to think of that meaning. And then offering mandala, by offering this ground anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers. So often what that refers to is you are visualizing the Vajra ground, but you can, if you're holding a mandala plate, that's what you're focusing on, this ground, and you can sprinkle upon it perfume, anoint it with perfume, spread perfume on it, and strew flowers on the top before you start putting the rice. By offering this ground anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and moon, visualized as a Buddha realm, may all wandering beings enjoy a pure realm. O holy and perfect pure Lama, our primordial guru, from the clouds of compassion that form the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please send down a rain of vast and profound Dharma that is found in the Gompa Rapsel text by Lama Tsong Khapa, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. Idam Guru Rana Mandalakam Niryatayami. Idam, the first word in Sanskrit, means this. Nadine was, we were texting before. She said, just after Yidam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami, can I do the inner mandala? And I said, the first word is idam rather than yidam, like yidam meaning like meditational deity. So idam means this. Guru is the object to whom you're offering. Ratna Mandalakam means this precious mandala. Niryatayami means I offer this precious mandala to the Guru. So the word order in Sanskrit is not necessarily fixed, like there are rules in English where you have a certain preferred order of the words, but there can be arbitrary. So if you'd like to relax, and I'm going to read some from the dedication chapter of the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, because yesterday was the 49th day after William's passing away. And as this is often tradition to read the dedication chapter, I won't read the whole chapter. In fact, I'll skip some verses. But I will, if you can just concentrate on the meaning, relax your body and relax your mind. and place your mindfulness, place your attention on the words that are being said. I better put my other reading glasses on here. There are glasses on. May all sentient beings be graced with a bodhisattva way of life by the virtue I have obtained by reflecting on a guide to the bodhisattva's way of life. So you can think by the merit that we've accrued in the various practices we did for William's well-being as he was sick, and after having passed away, may all sentient beings be graced with a bodhisattva way of life. Through my merit, may all those in all directions who are afflicted by bodily and mental sufferings obtain oceans of joy and contentment. We're dedicating our merit in that way that, as a source of the, to find happiness and contentment for those that are suffering. As long as the cycle of existence lasts, may their happiness never decline. May the world attain the constant joy of the bodhisattvas. As many hells as there are in the worlds, may beings in them delight in the joys of contentment of Sukhavati. So this is one of the practices that we think to imagine the hell beings, due to our merits that we send out in whatever form that they will benefit sentient being, transform into rain in the hot realms, warmth in the cold hells, and so forth, and that those realms transform into Sukhavati as a mental exercise, dedicating our merits. May those afflicted with cold find warmth. May those oppressed with heat be cooled by oceans of water springing from the great clouds of the bodhisattvas. May the forest of stored leaves in the hell realms become for them the splendor of a pleasure grove. And may the sword-like shalmali trees grow as wish-fulfilling trees. So one of the surrounding hells that you have to pass through, even if you experience the hot and cold hells, the major hells, has these various kinds of experiences where as you're running, the leaves of some of the trees are like sharp blades that cut your skin and so forth. May the regions of hell become vast ponds of delight, fragrant with lotuses, beautiful and pleasing, with the cries of white geese, wild ducks, ruddy geese, and swans. May the heap of burning coal become a mound of jewels. This is again referring to one of the hell realms. May the burning ground become a crystal marble floor, and may the mountains of the crushing hell become temples of worship filled with sugatas. Again, the crushing hell, in one of the hells, you are experiencing something as a result of having crushed bugs and so forth in previous lives, swatted flies and so forth. Between two mountains, you're crushed, and this is what's being referred here as the crushing hell. May the rain of burning coal, lava, and daggers from now on become a rain of flowers, and may mutual battling with weapons now become a playful flower fight. By the power of my virtue, may those whose flesh has completely fallen off, whose skeletons are of the color of white jasmine flower, and who are immersed in the river of Vaitarani, whose water is like a fire, may they attain celestial bodies and dwell with the goddesses by the river Mandakini. May the horrifying agents of Yama, crows and vultures, suddenly watch, hear, and fear. It is the karmically produced protectors in the hell realms They're not actual sentient beings. They're projections of our mind, the crows and vultures that eat our bodies and so forth. Those looking upward behold blazing Vajrapani in the sky and wonder, whose is this brilliant light that dispels darkness all around and generates the joy of contentment? May they depart together with him, freed of vice through the power of their joy. A rain of lotuses falls mixed with fragrant waters. It is seen to extinguish the unceasing fires of hell. May the beings of the hells, suddenly refreshed with joy, wonder, what is this? And may they see Padma Pani. So Padma means lotus, Pani means holding. So the holder of the lotus is another name for Avalokiteshvara. Friends, come quickly, cast away fear. We are alive, a radiant vanquisher of fear. A certain prince in a monastic robe has come to us. By his power, every adversity is removed. Streams of delight flow. The spirit of awakening is born, as is compassion, the mother of protection of all beings. Let me skip some verses. May the animals, may the risk of animals being eaten by each other disappear. May the pretas be happy, as are the people of Uttarakaru, one of the continents that of the 4 continents around Mount Meru, where the people are by their own karma are very content. May the pretas always be satisfied, bathed and refreshed by the streams of milk pouring from the hand of noble Avalokiteshvara. May the blind always see forms, and may the deaf hear as a result of my merits. May pregnant women give birth without pains, as did Maya Devi, the Buddha's mother, when she gave birth to Buddha, no pain whatsoever. May they acquire everything that is beneficial and desired by the mind, clothing, food, drink, flower garlands, sandal paste, and ornaments. May those who are fearful become fearless, and those struck by grief find joy. May the despondent become resolute and free of trepidation. May the ill have good health. May they be freed from every bondage. May the weak become strong and have affectionate hearts for one another. May all regions be advantageous to all those who travel on the roads. May the purpose for which they set out be expediently accomplished. May those who journey by boat succeed as they desire. May they safely reach the shore and rejoice with their relatives. So one can also read that as meaning passing over the ocean of samsara through the vehicles of the bodhisattvas and the Shravakas hearers, the Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas. May those who find themselves on wrong paths in dreary forests come upon the company of fellow travelers, and without fatigue, may they journey without fear of bandits, tigers, and the like. May deities protect the dull, the insane, the deranged, the helpless, the young, the elderly, and those in danger from sickness, the wilderness, and so on. May they be free from all lack of leisure. So may they have the auspicious rebirth of leisure and endowment. May they be endowed with faith, wisdom, compassion. May they be possessed of stature and good conduct. And may they always remember their former lives. May they be inexhaustible treasures like the sky treasure, free of conflict or irritation. May they have independent ways of life. May beings who have little splendor be endowed with great magnificence. May unattractive wretches be endowed with beauty, and so forth. So it goes on for many pages. So if you have a chance to read that later today, the dedication chapter, dedicating the merits that we accrued in, practices for William, dedicating them in that general way, in particular for his own experience of those benefits. So we'll put up now the foundation of good qualities, because we're beginning the eighth session series. We usually do this at the beginning. The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect guru. Correctly following the guru is the root of the path. By my clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely on the guru with great respect. When I have discovered that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found but once, is extremely difficult to find again, and is greatly meaningful to achieve liberation or enlightenment and so forth, to leave imprints of the realizations of the path. Once I've discovered that, please bless me to unceasingly generate the mind, taking its essence day and night. So to take the essence of this lifetime is to try to practice the Dharma in all that we do, whether you're washing the floors, cleaning the dishes, walking upstairs, going downstairs. This body and life are changing like a water bubble. Remember how quickly they perish and death comes. After death, just like a shadow follows the body, in the same way that a shadow never separates from the body, the results of black and white karma follow us. When I have found definite conviction in this, please bless me please bless me always to be conscientious in abandoning even the slightest collection of shortcomings and accomplishing all virtuous deeds. So in other words, bless me to abandon even the smallest negativities and to, spend time in achieving even small virtuous deeds, let alone large ones. When I have recognized the shortcomings of samsaric perfections, that there is no satisfaction in enjoying them, that they are the door of all suffering, and that they cannot be trusted, please bless me to generate a strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Through my being led by this pure thought, with great mindfulness, alertness, and conscientiousness, please bless me to make keeping the individual liberation vows, the pratimoksha vows, the root of the teachings, my essential practice. So we mentioned several times, may I use this as my essential practice. Here at this level, at the beginning level, you try to keep in mind one's, let's say, lay vows or monastic vows, and to keep those as the essential part of your practice. Just as I have fallen into the sea of samsara, so have all mother migrating beings. By my seeing this, please bless me to train in supreme bodhicitta, which bears the responsibility of freeing migrating beings. Even if I develop mere bodhicitta, just wishing bodhicitta, without familiarizing myself with the three types of morality, Mahayana morality of abstaining from negative actions, collecting virtuous karmas, virtuous dharma practices, and benefiting sentient beings, without familiarizing myself, without cultivating these three types of morality, with just mere wishing bodhicitta, I cannot achieve enlightenment. By my seeing this well, please bless me to keep the vows of the sons of the victorious ones with fervent effort. By my having pacified distractions to wrong objects and correctly analyzed the meaning of reality, the meaning of emptiness, please bless me to quickly generate within my mind stream the unified path of calm abiding and special insight. When I've become a suitable vessel for the practice of Tantra by training in the common path, please bless me to immediately enter the holy gateway of the fortunate beings, the supreme of all vehicles, the Vajrayana. And at that time, the basis of accomplishing the two attainments, the common cities and the supreme city of enlightenment, or the two attainments, the two cities, the basis for accomplishing those is keeping my vows and samayas purely. When I have gained effortless conviction in this, please bless me to protect those vows and samayas, even at the cost of my life. Then when I have realized exactly the vital points of the two stages, the generation stage and the completion stage, the essence of the tantric sets, and I am enjoying the yoga of 4 sessions with effort, 4 sessions of meditation daily, without being distracted by non-meditation objects. Please bless me to accomplish these according to the teachings of the holy ones. Thus may the virtuous friends who reveal the noble path, the Gewe Shenyan, the Geshes, and our spiritual friends, and the spiritual practitioners, fellow practitioners who correctly accomplish it, have long lives. Please bless me to pacify completely the collections of outer and inner obstacles. In all my lives, may I never be separated from perfect gurus. In my future lives, may I always find them quickly. May I enjoy the magnificent Dharma, and by completing the qualities of the grounds and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. Okay. Thank you. So here we are. Good to see you. Yeshe is here. Yeshiana Louise has come. Rosio's is here. Anna Mintu is here as usual in his darkened mode. John is here with Kitty Cat. What's your cat's name, John? You might have told us before.
No, I don't think you've met this one. This is Charlie, aka Charles Manson. His full name actually is Charles Manson. I did not name him.
I'm glad to hear that. Don, how are you? Good to see you. Okay. So here we are. I wonder if anyone has any questions that have been perplexing them. Anything they've been wanting to clear up before we start from our previous classes, or any general Dharma questions before we begin. Anyone? Someone cleared their throat? Not sure that meant they had a question. Yeshiana, do you have any questions? No? Okay. John has a question. Okay.
This is a comment question, but it's I listened to the recording of our last class, and I think it was shoot, who asked the question or made actually a very great comment. And now I'm not remembering who it was, but about the idea of the Sankhya idea of causation being a case of the something arising from itself,
Right.
and
right.
and I think his whoever
Probably was Sean. He
yeah,
likes.
it could
It's
have been,
always
but I don't think it was Sean. Now I remember, can't remember, but had suggested that this idea that that if all our minds, the ultimate nature of our minds is have Buddha nature, asking how is that different than the idea that everything is its ultimate nature is this mula prakriti.
Right. This fundamental nature that this Samkhya say pervades everything here and there. Everything has the same nature. Yeah.
So there was a question about how those two things might be, did they sounded similar.
Right, right.
They do sort of sound similar, but one thing and maybe this has already been pointed out, but in the Sankhya idea of Mula Prakriti, that's not the only ultimately existing thing. That's just the only materially ultimately existing thing. Because as Snehi will know, or anyone who studied Sankhya, there are two ultimately existing things.
But the Chiso.
Yeah, there is the Mula Prakriti or the Pradhana, and then there's also Purusha, which is being. I don't know. So that also is something that's, I mean,
so we haven't gone into detail, but we due to the sharp eye of who was it? Stephen, I think, had found on the Internet Archive a text that Thupten Jinpa had referred to, an encyclopedia of Eastern religions, and we extracted from that. We just took the PDF part of the Samkhyas and put it up on the Facebook page. So you might want to take a look at that, those of you who want to investigate further. So we're not going to go into more detail, although sometimes at this point, the Lamas explain that, but their explaining of that often depends on having been familiar a little bit with some of the terminology of the Samkhyas before. So as we don't have that familiarity, if you're interested, you can read that section that is this encyclopedia of Eastern religions, the section on the Samkhyas that's up on our Facebook page. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it at that right now, okay? Is that okay, John? Yeah, okay. So anyone else have a comment or thought? Okay. So I just wanted to, for again, auspiciousness, to read a little bit of the motivation Geshe-la gave when he was teaching this exact section we're at right now back in 2002. This was on July 9th, a couple of days after the Dalai Lama's, when we celebrate the Dalai Lama's birthday on July 6th. Usually at Deer Park, there's always a big picnic. So July 9th, in the morning, Geshe-la always gave motivation. So he quoted again from the Kadam Pachu, the book of Kadam that Geshe-la quoted several times in the past, certain sections. So this is the Pachu, I think, is the sections of Atisha's sayings. There's another section which are the sayings of his disciple. What's his name?
Dromdumpa.
Dromdumpa, right? Dromdumpa, who is actually supposedly a manifestation of Avalokiteshvara, was a layman, kept the most vows that a layman can keep, and was the stalwart lieutenant of Atisha. But anyway, these are Atisha's words. So this one is on page 223 of the book that Jinpa published, that was a translation of them. I think this is verse 222, but I'm not sure. This is on page 233. Chikdan Dume Tongbayi. So those of you who know a little Tibetan, Chikdan Duma is talking about one and many. Tongbayi Sangs Nang Nang Dala Sugmepa Shena Chikbe Ranglukte Nangme Yino Rikpa Chen. So Jinpa translated it as devoid of unity and multiplicity, that which seems to appear yet has no life. That's in the verse above, it says sok me pa. Sok is a word Tibetan used for life force, jiva. the natural state that distinguishes, that disintegrates when probed, is devoid of appearance. O you with awareness, Rigpa Chen, I was saying, you who fancy yourself as having some intelligence, you should know this. So Geshe-la said, this refers to Atisha, Chandrakirti, and Buddhapalita, etc., those lines about the production for the four extremes. Atisha says here, what we usually call Nangla Rangshin Mepa. That means something that appears but is actually devoid of intrinsic existence. Many verses that we have like that. Although things appear, they look like they have inherent existence, they are actually devoid of inherent existence. So in Tibetan, one way of saying that is Nangla Rangshin Meba. The Prasangika viewpoint is the Prasangika viewpoint. The things appear, yet they are devoid of inherent existence. Nangwa means appears. Everything, whether it be good or bad. Rangshin Mepa means things are not inherently existent, although they appear to be inherently existent. So Atisha called in these verses of the Kadam, book of Kadam. So Atisha called Nangme. Nangme. What is Nangme is the Chikdang Dume Tongbayi, means all those things, phenomena, causes and effects, are actually empty if you examine them. Chikdang Duma, Chik means one, Duma means many. This is one, you may remember when we talked about the various logical reasonings to establish emptiness. And we haven't talked about this one yet, is the reasoning of one and many was especially renowned by Shantarakshita, Kamalashila, and the Svatantrika Madhyamikas, right? So we talked a little bit about that before. All these kinds of logical chittu delgi tensik, that's the reasoning of being devoid of being one and many. This kind of great logical system, that is one such logical reasoning used a lot by Bhava Viveka, Shantarakshita, and so forth. That way of emptiness, all things being empty, but that they appear. Nang drala means the way of appearing, this way and that way. Actually, it appears as though when you look at them, they are inherently existent, but they are sok mepa, means that there's nothing there. There's no life force there. Sok in Tibetan means life. I think, what is it, Paul and John? I think usually jiva, something like that, right? Or no?
Something like that, Honorable George.
Right. Jiva kind of means life force. So when we talk about, we even say that in the Abhidharma, it says that even plants have life force, but they don't have mind. So they're not sentient beings. They do have life. There's some kind of jiva, some kind of energizing principle there. But when you look at things that look to be inherently existent, it's as though they have no life. You know, there's nothing really there, in other words. When a person has this, that person actually appears to be inherently existent. Usually sok means essential nature. Like here is the phenomenal things, all those things actually, they appear but are sok mepa. And I guess I actually looked up here the near jiva. Near is a prefix before some words that means not. Like sometimes the syllable like when is just a negative particle in Sanskrit. Sometimes if the word itself begins with like atma, you would say an to be the negative particle, an atma, no self. but in some cases, near also has the same, NIR has the same function. If you examine what is there, what that is, each of them under that terminology or under their identification or whatever appearance, if you examine and investigate what is their true and inherent nature, the Tibetan text says chena, if you investigate, then jikpa ranglukte, then jikpa means they disappear, they're destroyed or perished. There is nothing there. You can't find anything. Chena jikpe ranglukte. Rangluk means one's own system. That means the Prasangika system. So here the Prasangika view is that under investigation, under ultimate analysis, there is nothing that can be found. But if you don't do ultimate analysis, if you just have general conventional analysis, of course things exist. You can say, that's my cat, Charlie Manson, over there. I'm not sure how your cat got. Maybe he was renowned for eating lots of mice or something like that. But if you don't do ultimate analysis, general analysis, conventional sense, of course, yes, exist. Okay, so I'm going to, although the Geshe-la's presentation was longer, that's just what I'm going to explain right now so that we can spend more of our time in class. Geshe-la would often bring up quotations like that from other sources at the beginning of the days. To sort of give us another view of him. So where we are, last time we stopped and we said that we're going to begin here today in Jinpa's text on page 198, the FPMT translation by Venerable Jun Nysel, page 104, if I'm not mistaken. Today's March 16th, right? So I'm not looking at the wrong place. So here Jinpa says, now, since they do accept that the seed and the sprout are distinct, they do not say that the sprout arises from the sprout itself. So what are we talking about here? This is in the section, if you look at just sort of like the headings in Jinpa's book, a little bit above that, if an effect arises from a cause that is identical to it in nature, its arising would be pointless. I say would be because things don't arise. Effects do not arise from causes that are identical in nature to them. Usually causes and effects are different, right? So that was verse 6.8c. If things originate from themselves, nothing is gained. Or as the FPMT translation said, if that were to arise from that, this is literally what the verse says. You have to sort of understand there would not exist any of the qualities. There would not be any qualities. Or as Jinpa said, nothing is gained. And so this is now asking, what are the reasons that one can use to ascertain that things do not arise from themselves, are not produced from themselves? Snehi, how are you doing?
Venerable George, when you just read that thing, if an effect arises from a cause that is identical to its nature, its arising will be pointless. And I was wondering, how we say, like in science, diamonds are just carbon. So that's the effect. You have a diamond, but the cause is carbon and it has the same nature. Like, should that be understood differently?
Yeah, that the carbon that formed the diamond beforehand might have been as charcoal under the ground, coal under the ground that was compressed by the mantle for millions of years in such a way that the carbon atoms were forced into a crystalline structure. So although the carbon is the substantial cause of the diamond, it's not the cause which, the substantial cause of the raw carbon, whether it had been coal or charcoal or whatever that was compressed. Nowadays, I don't know what they use in the laboratories to make synthetic diamonds, but they do start with some charcoal. But the end product is of a different nature than what was there before, in the sense of the crystalline structure being different, right? You wouldn't want to give your loved one a ring with a piece of charcoal on it as your engagement ring or something like that.
Right. But I wonder, because graphite is also carbon,
Yeah,
and
graphite.
diamond is also carbon, but you apply different conditions to it and you get two different effects. And
Right.
it seems to me like very similar to what Sankhya is saying is you have, the three gunas, which is prakriti, but depending on different causes and conditions, you end up with, a sprout or a peach or a table. But they're saying it's of the same nature, which to me sounds like graphite and diamonds are of the same nature as carbon. Or I'm not understanding this in the same way.
So I think a little bit different. So the Samkhya view is that, and there are different schools of Samkhya, but one of the schools that we're dealing with here is saying that that the effect that you experience existed. For it to exist, it had to exist before, because of this prakriti, which is overseeing principle. All of the things that have existed and will exist in the future and that are existing now all share this same nature, so that the effect that we see now is manifested or is produced from something which was already there in an unmanifested way in the past, in the causal state. So let's go a little bit further, because we're going to be talking about, there's some more clarification about this. Is that okay? Say okay. So that was sort of the question that we were ending on last time, and the response was, if things, for example, a sprout, taking an example of a sprout as a thing, a functional thing, which is the agent in the context of something coming to arise. What does that mean? That means so that implies that, say, if you have a sprout here in this finger here, that is a sprout. If it's which is the agent in the context of something coming to arise, how can the sprout itself be the agent, the producer? That means it must have existed before, in the time of the seed. If they originate from themselves, nothing additional is gained by coming into being in such a manner. Let me read you what the FPNT said, translated that as, while being produced, if that sprout were to arise from that, the agent of the action of production, there would not exist any of the special qualities which must occur in arising thus, because the self-entity of the sprout has already been attained at the time of the former cause, which she put in parentheses, the seed. So if the sprout already existed at the time of the seed, there's nothing new that's gained by originating that way, by being produced that way. the reality of the sprout, which is its existence, has already been obtained before at the time of its cause. So sort of the sense is, what's the purpose? It would be purposeless for it to be produced again because it was already in existence before. It's not as though, like, say, for instance, when we talk about continuity, the continuity of my cheap reading glasses here, these throwaway things I used to read, the labels on my food that are printed so infuriatingly small, the continuity of these, that does have, that is produced from something similar that existed before. One instant of the glasses arises from the previous instant of the glasses, which was similar. But here we're talking about something which takes a different aspect from the seed to the sprout. So if the sprout already existed in the seed, there would be nothing gained in appearing as the sprout. That's kind of the logical argument here.
But
Here,
don't they,
yeah, go on.
aren't they saying that it's unmanifest though? I mean, that's where I'm getting stuck, because they're saying it's unmanifest, but then it existed before. Like, how is it unmanifest?
Right. Because they would say that everything, because of the prakriti, everything exists in this little thing that cleaned my glasses, right? In an unmanifest form. So that's what's being refuted here. Here, the Samkhya's maintain that there's no denying that diverse causes and conditions are different, that they bring forth a single common effect. Or as Venerable Joan translated, regarding this, the Samkhya's claim that mutually different individual causes and conditions do have a single shared result. For this to be possible, Jimpa translated, they assert that a single primal substance must pervade them all. What is that? Why is that? The Samkhya's maintain that there's no denying that diverse causes and conditions can bring forth a single common effect. For this to be possible, they assert that a single primal substance, this prakriti, must pervade them all, a shared single nature of these causes and conditions. Therefore, whatever is the nature of the cause, such as a barley seed, for example, is the same nature as that of the conditions. So we hadn't talked about this before. Well, we did talk about it last week, but now a new idea. So the seed is the same nature as the water, which is used to moisten it, in your garden, the fertilizer, the warmth of the season, the sunlight, and so forth. It's the same nature as that of the conditions, the water, fertilizer, and so on. Likewise, the nature of the sprout and the nature of its causes and conditions are also the same. They're of the same nature. They're all part of this overarching prakriti. They assert to be the nature of all manifestations of phenomenal reality. So at this point, Geshe Sopa had said, in the same, where I mentioned the motivation at the beginning of the class, that same class, he said, the Samkhya, when they talk about Rangshin Paryan Suryan, this is something that Jimpa didn't translate, but Joan did translate. Par means over there, related with the expression like parul tu chimpa. You know what parul tu chimpa means? Anyone knows? What, Jennifer, what's that?
I think it's gone to the other side.
Right. Par, yeah, so gone over there, gone to the other. Sur, so par means over there. Parul tu chimpa, when we say the the what do you call it? The Sherab ki parotu chimba, the perfection of wisdom, or the wisdom gone beyond, the wisdom gone over there, parutu chimba. So par means over there, sur means over here. Those two are relative, like I mentioned last time. If I'm sitting here and I see a mountain peak out my window, from this position here, that mountain is par, is over there. And my position is sur, here. But if I were to, go over to that mountain peak and look through the window, I could see it with binoculars, probably, my window here. I would say, oh, there, par, the position I'm at now, which from my point of view here is sur, is here. And that position sitting on the mountain over there would be sur. So they're relative. So Geshe-la said, Samkhya, Rangshin, Paryan, Suryan, your general and my general are the same nature. Rangshin, Paryan, Suryan, your general principle and my general principle, this Prakriti, are the same. So you and I are the same nature. That's kind of what's being gotten at here. Okay. So that's where we've gotten up to last time. So what we read here this morning, now since they do accept that the seed and the sprout are distinct, they're talking about two different kinds of levels of reality here. For them, the seed and the sprout share this same nature under Prakriti, but in their manifestation, they're still seen to be distinct. So they do say that they're distinct on this kind of conventional level. Now, since they do accept the seed and the sprout are distinct, they do not say that the sprout arises from the sprout itself. Okay. FPMT translation says, therefore, since they merely assert the seed and the sprout to be mutually different, and then she has in parentheses, since they assert the seed and the sprout to be only mutually different, they do not claim that the sprout is produced from the sprout. Yet, or however, nevertheless, when they assert that the sprout arises from its seed and from its own nature, given that according to them, the two natures are identical, which are the two natures that are supposed to be identical here?
Par and sur.
Well, yeah, the seed and the sprout, right? The two natures are supposed to, when it says, nevertheless, when they assert that the sprout arises from its seed and from its own nature, given according to them, the two natures are identical, the nature of the seed and the sprout arises from its own nature, it's supposed to be the same, which is supposed to be identical to the nature of the seed, it must arise from its own nature, and an unmanifested sprout must exist at the time of its cause. This is, in fact, how they uphold the notion of self-arising. Making any sense? Head scratching, not making any sense. Sean is completely disbelieving. Snehi is also on the nay side. Send them to the gladiators. It's not making any sense. Where did I need my water here? Who can explain? Paul? John?
I still feel like the Prasangikas are making it sound like this nature they're talking about is inherently existing, and they're not claiming that.
No, the inherent existence doesn't enter into this argument at all. So generally of these four...
But we're refuting it based on this nature being inherently existing.
No. We haven't talked about inherent existence. They're using the word rangshin or svabhava or prakriti to mean something, but that's not talking about an inherent existence. They're just saying it's a general kind of principle. When you talk about the four alternatives here that Nagarjuna talked about, right? Things are not produced from themselves, from something which is other than themselves. They're not produced from something which is both a combination of both themselves and other, and they are not produced causelessly. Those are the four alternatives here. The only one where you have to invoke the use of inherent existence is the production from other, because Prasangika says there is production from other in mere other, not inherently existent other, but to refute production from self, from a combination of self and other, and causelessly. You don't have to enter into utilizing the Prasangika view of inherent existence. You can just dispense these arguments that things arise from their own nature, that the nature, that let's say the sprout arises from a cause which is of the same nature as it.
But see, that's where I don't understand how they're using the term nature, because if you said something like they arise from the same physical nature, well, then that would apply. But obviously that's not what we're talking about. So I don't know what we're talking about is the problem. Like,
Okay.
I have no idea what they mean by nature.
So what they're talking about is that there is an overarching nature that is shared by all phenomena.
Which I would argue, well, all physical phenomena share physical reality. So, I mean, is that?
Yeah, but they're talking about this nature in which, let's say, the present sprout, which has just arisen from the formerly existent seed, which is now has transformed into the sprout, right?
But they're saying those are distinct things.
Wait a second. That the sprout that now exists, its nature has existed all the time, shared in everything, has existed in the trees outside my house, in the mountains, in my car, and so forth, and certainly has existed in the previously existing seed, but in an unmanifest way, that the sprout was already there in an unmanifest way.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, in some way. What do you think, Snehi? You're an adherent of the Samkhya view a little bit.
I'm not an adherent, but I'm like Sean. Like this concept of shared nature makes me think the way science says it. It's like everything we say is made up of electrons, protons, and neutrons, and however you decompose those, everything is made up of gluons or quarks or whatever. So everything shares the same nature, and under different causes and conditions, they show up as different things.
Right.
And
So
I feel like Samkhya is saying that.
Let's say if in a cyclotron, if you inject some electrons in the cyclotron, which is a big circular thing with magnets and electrical potential, you accelerate them around in a big circle. You've heard of cyclotrons, right? And synchrotrons and so on. So you accelerate them around. And then you can cause that accelerated electron beam, bunch of electrons, to hit some substance and then disintegrate. Their material disintegrates, and out comes photons and other kinds of high energy particles. But the electron no longer is existing there. It's been transformed into, in some cases, energy, in the sense of when using Einstein's E equals mc squared. You remember that? So energy is equal to the mass, the energy that is found in some material is equal to its mass times the speed of light squared. C is the physics symbol for the speed of light, right? ME equals MC squared, famous equation that Einstein derived. So the particles that come out from that collision, Snehi, according to the Samkhya, if they were analyzing this, they would say they already existed there in an unmanifest way in the electron that was speeding around. But the transformation of that mass into energy doesn't mean that those particles were already there, kind of like the sprout is already in the seed. Where is Snehi? I forgot where she is. There she is. So it's a little bit different than that. It's not saying that you're just transforming one thing into another. We're saying that the thing that results was already there before in an unmanifest way. That's their position.
But how, like if you put that on a bigger scale of like a car and you smash a car and the tire flies off, the tire was already there, but we were talking about a car.
Yeah.
So how is that different?
I'm not sure what you're thinking. What are you thinking?
If you're saying if you smash an electron and these other particles come out, well, the other particles are obviously inside the electron and made up.
That's what Samkhya would say. That's what Samkhya would say. Well, they wouldn't say obviously. They would say that those other particles were already within the electron in an unmanifest way. But that's not how modern science views that. Those particles are not there, because if that electron were to hit a different particle at a higher energy or a lower energy, different things would come out. A whole myriad of kinds of particles can come out depending on the energy. Okay, hold that in abidance for a second. So what we just had here, nevertheless, when they assert, let me go back to reading it easily here. Nevertheless, when they assert, that means when the Samkhya's assert that the sprout arises from its seed and from its own nature, given that, according to them, the Samkhya's, the two natures are identical, the nature of the sprout and the seed, it must arise from its own nature, because the nature of the sprout, the nature of the seed is the same as the nature of the sprout. And additionally, an unmanifest sprout must exist at the time of its cause. This is, in fact, how they uphold the notion of self-arising. That's the Samkhya view. So the FPMT translation of that was, however, in propounding that a sprout is produced from a seed and from the seed's nature, Geshe-Zopa said from the sprout's nature, these two are one. Therefore, production from its own nature and production of, where is it? And therefore, production from its own nature and production of a sprout that exists non-apparently or unmanifest at the time of the cause is the mode of asserting production from self in the Samkhya tradition. Maybe just by hearing this again and again, you're beginning to get a little bit of an idea. I think we're still perplexed. Okay, so Geshe-Zopa said at this time, he was quoting from the verse here, Rangshin ni Chikyinbe. That means these two natures are one. Rangshin means nature or prakriti in this case, because the Rangshin is sometimes translated as prakriti in this context by the Samkhyas. That's how that they use, or Svabhava. Or they don't use Svabhava for Rangshin. They translate the Rangshin as Prakriti. Geshe-la said, those Rangshin Yinpe means the nature of a sprout and the nature of the seed, their final natures, the final nature of the sprout, the final nature of the seed are the same. So therefore, it arises from its own nature. The sprout arises from its own nature. Then they will say that the nugu muselwa, the sprout, the nugu, is already existent in the cause in an unmanifested way, an unapparent way, miselwa. Selwa sometimes means clear. It has other meanings also, the word selwa, but here it means unapparent way or unmanifest way. It's not seeable there, but it is there. Not manifested, but the unclear sprout is there. It's already there before the cause, and then arises later and becomes visible when it comes. So that's their presentation of self-generation, that the sprout existed in an unmanifest way in the seed. So that's different than when we were joking with Khapa, who was at some of our classes, the botanist, about, if you take a lima bean, that it looks like if you open it up, if it's been wetted, if it's been moistened for some time, that you can see a kind of what looks like the sprout inside. Not talking about that. We're talking about an unmanifest sprout that exists in the nature of the seed.
Can I, excuse me.
Yeah.
Let me just offer one thing that, and I'm basing this on, I may kind of, having read that encyclopedia of Indian philosophy a long time ago, but it's an excellent piece on Sankhya, that in fact this Sankhya, there really isn't until pretty late, chronologically really late in India, are there systematic commentaries on Sankhya. And when they occur, the Sankhya position acknowledges that they don't believe something new has actually been produced. So, and that is because—
So that would mean something was already there before. So it's not something new. Right.
So the idea, it's completely counterintuitive, and the point, but it makes sense in the context, in its own context, because the entire project of the Sankhya is to disentangle from creation, to create a sort of isolation and away from the disturbance of Mula Prakriti. That's where liberation occurs. So they're perfectly happy to acknowledge that real production doesn't happen. But it sounds like Tsongkhapa's, Jai Rinpoche's commentary on it is that, or Chandrakirti's critique of it, is that it is incoherent to talk about something because we see something new happening. It's common sense that something new has occurred.
Right.
When it sprout from a seed.
Right. Well, that will be coming up. Yeah, one of the arguments. So let's keep that in mind. Let's hold on. Snehi, do you have something?
No, I was trying to find a moment to say, is it a good time to take a little break so you can stretch your legs?
Okay, let's take a very short break. I'm not too bad. If you need to go make a cup of tea or go to the bathroom, now's a good time. I'll be right back. You can keep on talking. I'll be listening. You can.
Is our goal to refute the Samkhya perspective, or to try to get our heads around why we should agree with it?
No, we shouldn't get. We shouldn't
I mean, is this
from the
okay?
president?
No. So are we trying to get our heads around why flat earthers believe there is a flat earth, so we can refute that? Or are we starting from the perspective that, all right, I understand that the earth is round?
We're the former position. So we want to try to understand what they're saying and from their perspective and show how that is logically inconsistent.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That helped a whole lot. All
Okay. Okay. So although there were some sections that we mentioned when we were talking about them that were quite complicated, this is not generally considered complicated. It seems complicated to us because we're not familiar with the assertions of the Samkhya school, that philosophical school. So, rather than spending a lot of time to actually go through it, it would take us a class and a half. And rather than doing that, I'm going to leave it up to those of you who are interested to look at the article on Samkhya that was posted and to pay attention to the general principles that the Tibetans, Lama Tsong Khapa and so forth, well, Chandrakirti, not just Tibetans, Bhaviveka, Shantarakshita, and so forth, they all refuted the Samkhya position of self-generation, self-production. You might ask whether there's any schools, philosophical schools that exist today that say things are produced from their own nature. So that's something you can investigate separately. So let me just read a little bit further here. So the Jimba's translation continues. Although some elements of Samkhya, or let's say amongst the Samkhyas, there are various divisions, just like in the Vaibhashikas, there were the Kashmiri Vaibhashikas and the Vaibhashikas from Madhya and from other places that had slightly different views. A similar kind of thing in the Samkhyas. Although some elements of Samkhya do not speak in terms of arising, or as we're translating, production, but they assert that what was unmanifest at the time of the cause later becomes manifest from the cause. Even if they say that, the meaning remains the same. That means there are logical arguments to refute that position that something arises from its own nature remains the same. Let's see, what did Venerable Joan translate this here? She translates some specific Samkhyas. This is on page 104, right? About halfway down the page, starting a new paragraph. Some specific Samkhyas, that's where Jimpa is translating some elements of the Samkhya. Some specific Samkhyas do not propound production itself, but assert that from a cause, maybe it should be a comma, the previously non-apparent is later apparent or made apparent. What was unapparent or unmanifest at the time of the seed later becomes apparent. So they don't talk about production. However, the meaning is the same. Okay, following? So at this point, Geshe Sopa said, some Sakyas say, Khepar Gashikni, that means the Khepar particular ones, Gashik means some particular sections of the Samkhya say, Kewa Mimawa, they do not propound the word production. Their Kewa Mimawa, they do not propound production, not saying that the sprout will be produced again. Instead, they say Selwar Mawa. They are propounders of manifestation or unmanifestation. Something exists unmanifest and later becomes manifest, rather than saying it's produced. So it's just sort of from a Buddhist perspective, that's just terminology. It still amounts to the same thing. Selwarmawa, propounders of manifestation, and Kewarmawa, propounders of production, are two different ways of explaining the Samkhya position. So these different Samkhya schools are saying this. One says the spout already exists in the cause, then that will again be produced. Which one is that? That's the propounders of production, right? Other Samkhyas do not say it is produced, but it is manifested or made apparent. Earlier, it is not manifested or apparent, then later it becomes manifest, apparent, okay? That is a little more clear way of saying, Selwarmawa. These are two things, but in reality, they're the same in terms of our refutation here. So the result so the result being in the cause already exists, whether accepted as selwar or miselwar, whether manifested or unmanifested, it doesn't matter. It already exists there. And that is contradictory. So therefore, this is rejected in the same way as before. As Chimpa said, the meaning remains the same. Okay, how are we doing? 18. Okay. So Jimpa's text continues. This is also the manner in which Samkhya's accept universal and its particulars to be identical in nature, which is utterly different from the Buddhist view that holds, say, functional thing, in Tibetan we say ngopo, or bhava, I guess, and vas as sharing the same nature. Okay, what's this talking about? I want to ask Paul, but he looks like he's in one of these mystery novels with the light coming in the back. Who's that? Stephen, someone who wrote The Shining and The Thinning. Who is that?
Stephen King.
Stephen King. It looks like you're in some coming out of the mist or something. Jennifer is in a better room of the house, therefore. So, what's the Buddhist position, Paul, in terms of a vase, for instance, being a functional thing? What is functional thing? Is that a particular or a generality?
So you're asking what is the common locus between Ngobo and Pumba, right? Is that what you're saying? Yes.
Yeah, between functional thing and
functional thing, and they are. Well, I mean, it depends. Is he talking about generalities and particulars, right? Are you talking about a particular vase?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Generality. What's
okay.
the Buddhist take on generality and their particulars?
Okay, so generalities do not exist. They
well, they do exist.
Well, they exist, but they're not real. Exactly. The Sautrantika position is that generalities do not inhere in their particulars, that generalities exist, but they're not real. The only things that are real are particulars. And this gets back.
So let me stop there. Okay, so
okay.
Let me get the position that we're talking about here. So generally, when we talk about the higher school, certainly what Paul's saying is true. And if you go through the various Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, and so forth, there are different ideas between generality and particulars. So what are we talking about here? A generality or a general means a general class. like say, knowable things. That's a general class. And then knowable things would include everything, right? Because according to Mahayana, everything that exists is knowable. So anything that exists is an element or a particular of that generality knowable thing. Also, you can make other categories like that. Functional thing, or ngopo. So what's the defining characteristic, Don? Do you remember from earlier courses? What's the meaning of a functional thing?
I'm not sure what you mean. Able to perform a function.
Yeah, good, yeah. Are they permanent or impermanent?
Impermanent.
They're impermanent. So impermanent phenomena are called functional things because they're able to perform a function. They arise from causes and conditions. So they are products. There are other kinds of synonyms of functional thing. But if you take functional thing or thing as your category, like previously we took knowable phenomena, that included everything. So functional things excludes within its generality, it excludes anything that's permanent, right? It excludes, for instance, shunyata. It excludes uncompounded space because that's permanent. It excludes cessations because cessations are permanent. So the whole bunch of things that are excluded, only things that are impermanent and able to perform a function are there. And those individual elements within that generality are called particulars, or generally, the word in Tibetan for generality is chi, and the particulars are sometimes called chetak, like the name for the Vaibhashikas are called chetamawa, particularists. But here in the Samkhya system and in some logical systems, there's another word that's used for particular, and that's selwa. The same selwa that we were talking about, manifest and unmanifest, the same word, but having a different meaning here. So the individual elements like the bumpa or vase is of the nature of the generality, right? It is if you say is a vase a generality, and I say not a generality, is a vase a functioning thing? Karen, what would you say? Is a vase a functioning thing?
Yes, it's a functioning thing.
Okay, Karen, so what if I say, is a functioning thing a vase? No, not necessarily. Functioning thing is a big category, generality. So it doesn't, there's not a what do you say, mutual pervasion that way. If you're a vase is a functioning thing, but a functioning thing is not necessarily a vase. It can be many things, right? So here it's saying, which is utterly different from the Buddhist view that holds, say, that functioning thing, ngopo, and vase sharing the same nature. They share the same nature, yet there is still a difference between them. So here it says, this is also the manner, the sentence that began, this is also the manner in which the Samkhyas accept the universal and its particulars to be identical in nature. So there, he says, D, chisel ngo chiktu dopa yang deta yingi. So that's the same word, chi, general, and its particulars. So this is talking about the chi soo, though. The Samkhyas are talking about a generality. They're talking about the general principle, which all phenomena share. So they say they are one nature, but this is different than the Buddhist understanding of one nature. Okay. Let me read what Geshe said. Geshe Sopa said at this point. Sometimes his explanations clarify things a bit for me anyway. I don't know if you found it that way. You have to understand that one, Geshe said, this particular statement. Chisel ngowo. Chi, generality. Sel means particular. Ngowo means, in this case, what are we calling here? The same entity, or to be an entity. That is, again, Dharmakirti's logical system. Chi sel means chi dang selwa. Chi means general or generality, like a general class, and selwa means particular or instance. Sometimes instances are written chetak, like I mentioned before, when sometimes we say chi dang chetak, the generality and its particulars, but it means the same thing. Chi sel means the general and the particular. The Samkhya's accept that every general and its particulars are one entity, ngochik, the same nature. Only one. This is the Tsawe Rangshin, the Mula Prakriti that John sometimes likes to remind us of the Sanskrit, right? Tsawe Rangshin, right, John? Go on.
I just want to maybe there could easily be a confusion in the translation where at least Thupten Jinpa is translating two things the same way. Is Rangshin Chikpa and Ngo Chikpa. He's calling it both in nature, that they are identical in nature. So in the previous, we have that something that the sprout is identical in nature, that it is Rangshin Chikpa.
Right. So the FPMT translation says entity.
Yeah,
the Buddhist assertion that a thing and a pot are the same entity is not similar. By this, the generality and instances are asserted to be the same entity in the FPMT translation, which is preferable than saying nature, which was we were talking about before. Okay. However, the Buddhist assertion that a thing and that thing, functional thing, and pot are not the same entity, are the same entity, is not at all similar. So let me continue reading what Geshe said here. So this is Sawe Rangshin, or we would say Mula Prakriti. That's what they're talking about, the general principle. This means everything manifested or unmanifested, whatever, are all the same entity, or Geshe says same nature. Everything has this same one nature or entity. They accept that way. Chisel ngo chiktu dupayang, even though they assert the general principle and its particulars are one entity or one nature. Deta yingi, although it's like that, they exist that way. That's what the Samkhyas propound. The Buddhists say that the Buddhist presentation of Chisel Ngowo Chiktu Dopa, their assertion of being generality and its particulars being one entity, is completely different, completely dissimilar to the Samkhya idea that their general principle and its particulars are one entity. The Buddhists also say, except the general and particular are one entity, the general and particular things being different entities is later rejected in Dharmakirti's logical system in many different ways. A generality, the big class, if you think of a Venn diagram and all of the elements within that, all of those are, maybe that's not called a Venn diagram, I'm not sure. The Venn diagram is when you you overlap various things. Anyway, maybe you know what I'm talking about. If you have a big circle that represents the class of generality, all of the things, elements within it are its particulars. Buddhists accept general and particular are of one entity. And the fact that they are, the assertion that they are different entities is later rejected in Dharmakirti's logical system in many ways. Buddhists accept that they are one entity. That is accepted by non-Buddhist philosophy, that the generality and its particulars are different entities is accepted by the non-Buddhist Vaisheshikas. Is that what you were going to mention earlier, Paul? When we were talking about generality and particular?
Yeah, the rejection of the Vaisheshika position, yes.
So
Sorry.
Vaisheshika is not the Vaibhashika, right? Vaibhashika is the Buddhist system. Vaisheshika is one of the non-Buddhist systems, like Samkhya and so forth. There is a school that says that generality and its particulars are not the same entity. G and so on, every different natures. Okay. So this one, the Samkhya school accepts everything is of the same nature. The Vaisheshikas, another non-Buddhist school, says that everything is of everything are of different entities, different natures. But the Buddhists accept any kind of general and particular that they should be of the same nature. What does that mean? Take, for instance, ngopo, functioning thing. Any functioning thing or product, remember the product is another synonym of functioning thing, right? You could think of the generality as functioning thing, or you could call it, what is that, product, you know, that's a generality. Any functioning thing or product is called ngopo. They are able to produce their own result. That's what a functional thing means, as Don reminded us from the vast store, the deep well of his memory of tenets when we studied many years ago at Land of Medicine Buddha. So functioning thing, a thing which is able to produce a result, that is ngopo, functioning thing. If something does not produce a result at all, then it is not a ngopo. Like Duma Cheki Namka. What does Duma Cheki Namka mean? Do you remember Tibetan enough, Mikhail?
Yeah, uncompounded space.
Yeah, Duma Che means uncompounded. Namka means space. So that means the mentally apprehended lack of obstructing contact. It's not something you see with your eyes. It's something which is permanent. So that's not a ngopo, nor are something like non-existence. Something which is not existent, like the horns of a rabbit, is not a ngopo because it's not able to perform a function. Or what do you think? Can the horns of a rabbit perform a function? KT? Can I get scared?
Maybe in a fantasy world. No.
There are no horns of a rabbit, even though we can imagine them.
Yeah.
Say, for instance, self-existence, inherent existent I. That's also a non-existent phenomena. So that's not a ngopo. That's not a functioning thing either. And Geshe continued, a functioning thing also means it arises from a cause and will produce some other effect. So therefore, it's called a functional thing. So ngopo, functional thing, is a generality. The particulars, selwa, such as bumpa, vase, they are ngoochik. They are one entity or same nature. Chisel ngoochiktu doba, because when any vase is born, its nature is ngopo from the very beginning. As soon as a vase is created, the potter is making the vase or pot. Maybe it's a potter. Maybe it's better to say pot, making a pot. As soon as it's made, it is a functioning thing. It's not like something it has to gain later. That's its nature. Just like when we were talking about as soon as the pot is created, there is the shunyata of the pot, right? It cannot be outside of ngopo, a vase. It can't be out of that category. As soon as the vase exists, it should be a functioning thing. The same way, human or person is a generality, and its particulars, man, woman, and nowadays what? Doris has her hands over.
They,
What?
nowadays, there is also they, They.
Oh, they, yeah. Men, women, and unspecified, or, those whole sorts of things. They are particulars of human. All of them are particulars. Those particulars in the general are of one entity, ngowochik, or one nature, same nature. General and particular being one nature means the general and its particulars, well, it doesn't explain much, are one nature. Particular ones and the generals are of one nature, the same nature within general. But it doesn't mean the particular instances themselves are one and the same nature. Okay, so this is differing from the Samkhya. For the Samkhya, the general principle, they say that the general and its particulars are the same nature, but also the particulars are of the same nature with each other. Whereas the Buddha say, a vase is not the same nature as an automobile, which is a functioning thing, or something else that's within that category of functioning thing. You follow? Yeshi, you following?
But they confuse me a lot because
Say it a little bit louder.
I'm very confused because when you say something is not functional, I thought Buddhist view of a sunyata, like a kind of put everything not really existing or functional, so I'm very confused.
So what are you confused about? So generally, if we talk about...
Right, when you had the example of a horn of a rabbit, it doesn't exist, but at the same
Say
time,
again.
you asked Katie if a horn of a rabbit exists and it's not existing and it's not functional. So
Right.
I start getting confused, according to the Buddhist Sunyata view, nothing really exists. So
Okay, no, so we're talking about
anything-
two levels of existence.
Okay.
Nagarjuna mentions, and it's one of our core principles that we will go back to again and again. There are two levels of existence. The ultimate existence,
Right.
which the only thing which is can be found under ultimate analysis is emptiness. There is nothing that exists ultimately. Okay, on the conventional level, that's shunyata. But on the conventional level, phenomena do exist conventionally. Yeshi does exist in a valid way. Yeshi, well, we can see that the consistency, Yeshi of yesterday might have looked very much the same as today. Maybe she was wearing a different sweater, or her hair was a little bit different or something, but there's a continuity, karma and its effects. All of these are conventional phenomena that, although they don't exist ultimately, they don't exist when you use ultimate analysis to try to find them where they exist, they disappear into shunyata. But on the conventional level, they still exist and function. That's a very important principle. So we have to. We always say, Nagarjuna said, all phenomena are included in the two truths, ultimate truths and conventional truths. Okay, so a lot to think about. Let me just read a little bit further. So the Buddhists don't mean that the particular instances themselves and the generality are of the same nature. The Samkhyas, for them, the general, your general and my general are the same nature. When we talk about Paryin, Suryin, so your generality or general principle is the same as mine. So we are, unlike the Buddhists, which say that although the particulars and the generality are one nature, the particulars themselves are not of the same nature as each other. They're different natures: cow, horse, pig, human, car, tree, whatever. They're all different natures. Whereas for the Samkhya, the individual particulars are of the same nature. That's something that I think wasn't so clear in the presentation in the translation. Is it making a little more sense now? Okay. So both of them are covered by one nature. Ngopo, functioning thing, is the generality of both. So Ngopo is the nature of both fire and water, right? So the generality functioning thing has elements, has particulars, for instance, water and fire, which Buddhists say are of different natures. Water is not the nature of fire, right? That means general Ngopo is a, when we say chache, chachen and chache means possessor of parts. Another way of saying the generality is a possessor of parts or possessor of instances or particularities. And the selwa, the particulars, can be called parts. Okay, it's a part possessor. The generality is a part possessor, and its elements are parts. They are not so fire and water are not the same nature. They're different natures. This means that general Ngopo, chache, possessor of chache, the individual elements, according to Buddhism, Ngopo is a kind of imputed thing. That's, I think, what Paul was getting at when he said earlier, according to Satrantika, didn't really exist. So it's imputed existent. It's not something that you can point out. Give me show me a Ngopo in general. Show me the generality Ngopo. You can show particulars of functioning thing, right? Yeah, this is a functioning thing. My glass is a functioning. My nose is a functioning thing. Cows, horses, water, fire. Those are particulars, but you can't point out generality itself. You can't point out a functioning thing itself. It's just merely imputed on its parts. Ngopo is divisible. Functioning thing is divisible. It has parts. It is with parts. It's trichen yeah. So therefore, the horse part, Ngopo has a horse part, a cow part, a water part, fire part, individual elements of it. Ngopo has many, many parts. The parts themselves are not the same, but in the Samkhya system, all parts themselves are the same general principle. They are the same in being, sharing that same generality, a general principle. So that's a big difference between the Buddha, when it says they're utterly, the Buddhist presentation of generality in particular, completely different than the Samkhya. That's what's being meant by this. Okay, Sean, what do you think?
So, like in the case of the vase as a functional thing, is the vase also a generality and a specific?
Yeah, good. Yeah, so for instance, if you talk about Ngopo, you can say there are vases, there are columns, there are cows, water. And then if you take one of those elements, a particular, like vase. I could point to a vase, right? You know, in my room, I don't know, is anyone visible? Yeah, there's a vase over on my table over there, my platform, for self-empowerment and things like that. So there's a vase or bumba. But if you talk about the generality vase, it has various particulars. If you talk about vase as a generality, there is a crystal vase like that one. There's a brass vase or pot. Let's use the word general, pot rather than vase. So there's a crystal pot, there's a brass pot, there's golden pots, there's a turquoise pot, all sorts of different kinds of pots, cooking pot, baking pot. So vase, the word vase can refer to a particularity of ngopo. If you say, give me an example of ngopo, and I point to, I say, over there, that vase, whether it be crystal or whatever, that is still a vase, right? It's a particular of the generality vase, but vase itself can be a generality. Okay, good observation. Okay. So let me read something that Geshe-la quoted in this context. This will be up on the Facebook page. I think maybe, Doris, did you post it on notes now?
It's in the chat, but Venerable, could I also request what you were reading of Geshe Sopa? Well, what you've been reading?
Yeah. I'll try to get that to you so your transcription can be a little more.
Well, I think it would be also helpful to the rest of the class.
Okay, I'll try to get that. So in this context, Geshe-la quoted, when I say Geshe-la, usually I'm referring to Geshe Zopa. Because we refer, in our small circle, if you're some other circle, if you say Geshe-la, that means someone completely different, right? So when I say Geshe-la, generally I mean Geshe Zopa. So in this context, Geshe-la quoted the Pramanavartaka. Who remembers? Rocio, do you remember who wrote the Pramanavartaka? What's the Pramanavartaka? Anna, do you know what Pramanavartaka was about? If you say pramana, that's a good guess. So pramana can mean various things. It can mean validity, or valid cognition. So Pramanavartaka is a sort of explanation by Dharmakirti. So one of his major texts about the subject of valid cognition and validity. Say, for instance, in the second chapter, why the Buddha is pramana. It doesn't mean the Buddha is a valid cognition, but the Buddha is a valid person because he got rid of all the faults and developed all the good qualities. Okay, so he's quoting from the second chapter of Pramanavartaka, which is one that we have a translation of in that text by, was it Roger Jackson? His translation, Is Enlightenment Possible? You can, maybe some of you have that text. I don't think I have it. Do I have it here? Yeah, no, I don't have it here. So Geshe-la quoted this. Sasok Sena Langchen Gya. So sa means grass, sok means etc., crash and so forth. Sena, on the tip of grass and so forth. Langchen Gya. Langpo can sometimes mean just cow. Langchen, though, means elephant. So Langchen Gya, there are 100 elephants on the tip of grass. Ngonse matong yodoshe. Ngonse matong means not seen in the past, but they exist. This is a claim by the Samkhya's. Deke Drangchen Chukle Lun. So the thus said, the Samkhya's are more dull than animals. Chupa generally can mean animals, but Roger Jackson translated that, who but a bovine Samkhya would make such an argument? Bovine, chupa meaning he's taking as like bovine. What does bovine mean? Does it mean actually cow, or does it have, is that a generality that includes cows? What are bovines? Anyone know?
It's a category name.
Bovine. Okay, so it's a generality. It includes cows. What else does it include, Diana? Do you know?
Buffaloes.
Oh, okay, good. Bovine. Okay, so good. So the verse that Geshe-la was quoting says, unseen in past times, 100 elephants are said to exist on the tips of grass and so forth. Thus said, the Samkhya's are more dull than animals. Who would strive to express that with wonder? So Geshe-la said, that means on the tips of grass and so forth, sometimes these tiny little bugs, but also on the tips are 100 elephants, according to Samkhya, right? Why? Because everywhere there is this general principle. Also, the same nature as these tiny bugs, their nature is also elephant nature. They share the same nature. All the particulars share the same entity or nature as the generality. On there, the cause of elephants, or all of these, that means in an invisible way, there are 100 elephants already there. Samkhya say, you have to accept. So in that case, that is very, very stupid, Geshe-la said. Well, he's translating what Dharmakirti said. Even though nobody in the past has ever seen elephants or 100 elephants on the blade of a tip of grass, on the tip of a little blade of grass, even though it's not seen, it still exists. This is stupid. In the text, it has lun, which usually means dull or stupid. Another translation has the word shen, means who other than the Samkhya's would say this. This is most stupid, even more stupid than cows. And then just in that context, Geshe-la quoted again Dharmakirti, which I haven't been able to find this quote anywhere. Maybe Paul or John will know. The Tibetan says, Misang sesugyur. You are eating excrement. So also, Geshe-la said, when you eat some food, what comes out down there? Excrement, right? After eating and digesting. And what you ate, the excrement and what you ate are the same thing, the same nature. So you are eating bad things, Geshe-la said, or you're eating excrement, or, I won't say it, you kind of common expletive criticizing someone, eat excrement, you eat something or other. They are similar. This is their way of accepting self-production. Okay, I just wanted to share that with you. Okay, how are we doing? Getting a little clearer? Okay. So we just finished, although some elements of Samkhya do not speak in terms of arising, but in terms of manifest and unmanifest, this is also the manner in which the Samkhya's accept the universal and its particulars to be identical in nature, which the Buddhists accept generality and particulars are of one nature, but the Samkhya's go further and say all the particulars are of the same nature also, which is utterly different from the Buddhist view that holds functioning thing and vase as sharing the same nature. Okay, now the text continues. If the entire reality or nature of the sprout were to exist at the time of the seed, given that it is impossible for there to be a manifest sprout that is different from the sprout's reality, then the sprout itself will have to be present at the time of its cause. Not just the sprout's nature or its reality. The sprout itself will have to be present, not just its nature or reality. The sprout will have to be there because it's impossible for there to be a manifest sprout that is different from the sprout's reality. In that case, having already come into being, it would be pointless for it to arise again, or dunmei. I think this is dunmei, right? Don ten me do. Ten means utterly. So dunmei. Usually the donmei is not a name that's given to people. Usually we say donyo. What does donyo mean? Paul, do you know?
Dunya, it could mean Siddhartha, it could mean Amoga Siddhi, it could mean, it just means like having a purpose or being meaningful.
Yeah, meaningful. Yeah, like Kelsang Gyatso, the Lama who used to be called Geshe Jamba Gyatso, Kelsang Gyatso, his one text, his translation of Shantideva's Bodhisattva Charyavatara, his commentary to that was called Meaningful to Behold. So donyo tongwa donyo, meaningful to behold, meaningful to see. So donyo also, as Paul says, is can be a translation of Siddhartha. Dun is artha. Sid means accomplishing. That's more like
Dundrup or something, yeah, than you.
A little bit different, but so where are we? So now if the entire reality of the sprout were exists at the time of the seed, given that it is impossible that there to be a manifest sprout that is different from the sprout's reality, then the sprout itself would have to be present at the time of its cause, not just the sprout's nature or reality, but the sprout itself. In that case, having already come into being, it would be pointless, meaningless for it to arise again. So that was one of the great reasonings that was being sort of explained here, the pointless nature of arising again. Okay. So I just want to before we finish, I just wanted to introduce some terms that will be coming up in the next class and that we will spend some time on. Generally, when you have an action, there are three things. We say cha, che, le sum. Has anyone heard that before? John, have you heard that expression before? Cha, che, le sum? What does that mean?
Let's see. Cha, che, le sum, the action, the actor, and the the cha is the thing acted. The che is the action, and the lay is the action. Now I'm repeating.
Oh, yeah. Both are the first time. So cha is standing for Jawa, which means action.
Action.
Che stands for Chepapo, the agent or the one who's doing the action. Chawa and Cheba are related verbs, right? Chawa is like to act. So Chawa means the action. Che stands for Chepapo, the doer or the actor, or we would say also the agent of the action, right? And lay stands for what, Paul? I don't think.
Well, normally we would think it's karma, but I think here in this context, it refers to the object being acted upon.
Right. So the article that you kindly shared with me from Tom Tillemans, that book on Tibetan grammar, you pointed out that you'd found in there that particular explanation. The lay is the Tibetan translation of karman, Sanskrit, which has two different meanings. It can mean an action, or it can mean that which is acted upon, the object. So you have the another way of saying cha, che, le, sum. Sum means three, right? This is a very common thing in explaining actions and so forth, which we're going to be talking about in the next classes, is talking about these three things. There's an agent, the action, and that which is acted upon. Say, for instance, in cutting a tree, chopping a tree, the axeman or the axewoman, the axe person can be an agent, right? They're the one that's cutting the tree. And the action itself is the exerting the effort and the blade moving along and hitting into the wood. And the object that is acted upon is the wood or the tree. Actually, in Tibetan, shing can mean both. The word shing can mean tree or wood. So we talk about those three. So in that case, the order is different. If you start from the agent, that's the chepapo, that's the second element, cha, che, le, sum. The agent, the action, and that which is acted upon. So if you go into detail, and I think we talked about this once or twice over the many courses in the past, one can separate out at least two agents here. What is another agent of the chopping besides the person?
Well, there's the axe as an instrument. Yeah.
Yeah, the axe. You could use another word for the axe as meaning the closer direct agent. You could call it the instrument, which is wielded by the person, right? So both of them are agents, and the action is the moving of the axe and hitting into the wood, and the wood is the object acted upon. Does that make sense? What if I said it's not the wood that's the object acted upon, it's the chopped wood, the wood that has been chopped, because the action is chopping. Is that the right word? Can I say chopping? What if I said the the object acted upon is not the wood, but the chopped wood? Because the wood, until the wood is chopped, it hasn't been acted upon, right? I think, what do you think, Jennifer? Does it make sense?
Not, I mean, the first thing wouldn't make sense because you need to have a wood not chopped in order to be able to then chop it.
Right. So anyway, there are subdivisions in these. Like we said, there are two agents. In this case, there are two. There could even be more agents than that. The person that's wielding the axe and the axe itself are both agents, or you could say the principal agent is the person and the axe is the person's instrument. But when you talk about the object, the karman, which is often mistranslated as action, this is in Tuba Jinpa's book, we'll see that in a couple of pages. He mistranslates this famous verse from Fundamental Wisdom, where Nagarjuna said, if fire and fuel were the same, then Jinpa has, I think he has something like, then agent and action would become one. But instead, it's actually then agent, it should read agent and the object acted upon would be one. So what's that's talking about? When you look at a fire, let's say you've got a campfire and there's the wood burning, and then there's the fire, the flames coming out, one might think that the fire and the fuel, the wood, in this case, the kindling, are the same, or the same nature, right? But if they were the same, then the agent, what's the agent when fire burns wood? What's the agent?
Fire.
The fire is the agent, right? It's what's doing the action of what?
Burning.
Burning. Yeah, right. And what is that which is acted upon?
The wood.
The wood, the kindling, yeah, the fuel. Or if you have a gas fire, like in the movies, these, the person drops the match to, all the fuel from the car is gone in the ground there. You can see it, and he throws the match down, and the fire goes. And so the fire and the fuel seem to be one, right? But they are different. Okay, so we'll be talking about that next time. I just wanted to introduce that because I found when I was teaching Lama Usel, I think I told you this before, I would teach him something. We were reading from some books about the Incas or the Mayans or something like that. And he would look at me and like, yeah, you say, or I would tell him the stories, first of all. And then maybe a month or two later, Peter Kedge would have sent us the books to Sarah, these illustrated books from the Oxford Library or something for kids. And it would be the story of the Mayans. And he would read it and he said, you were right. Like the first time I told him, he didn't believe me, sort of like I was kind of like putting the primer on so that later when he heard it again, it would make some sense. So I just wanted to leave some primer now about cha, che, le sum. So you could write it, if you wrote it in just simple phonetics, you would write J-A, J-E, what? L-A-Y, I guess you would write completely phonetics. Sum, S-U-M, cha, che, le sum, but that's not how it's spelled in Tibetan. So I just wanted to leave that so when we encounter it again, you'll say, oh, that's what he was talking about. That's right.
And then Venerable George, when you instruct us to then dedicate to, the seal our dedication in the emptiness of the mikba sum meba, these are the three spheres.
Right. The one can consider these three spheres: the agent, which can mean yourself, the dedicator, and in a certain sense, the dedication itself, the merits, which would be what? If you're dedicating the merits to a goal, which would that be? The goal might be the object acted upon, the goal of our achieving enlightenment for the sake of sentient beings or making realizations. So you have to think about that one. When we talk about meditating on the emptiness of the three spheres, it's related to this Jache Le Sum, but you have to, just the same thing in cutting the tree, you have to analyze more particularly. There are two agents, there might be two objects acted upon, and so forth and so on. So we'll talk about that later. So good segue into let's dedicate our merits. Snehi's going to put up, I think, the prayers that we already know by heart. Due to these virtues, it would be good if we corrected these texts someday ourselves. Due to these virtues, because this is Gewadi, merits, virtues include both merits and collection of wisdom, right? So both collection of wisdom and collection of merit is included in Gewa. So it says Gewadi, due to these virtues, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all migrators or all wandering beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme precious bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen in my mind stream already what little there is, may it not diminish, but increase evermore. And prayer for the quick return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, the conqueror's children, the conqueror's offspring, the Bodhisattvas, you Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas also, victorious Losang, referring to Losang Drakpa, Lama Tsongkhapa, seeing him as already enlightened, conqueror Losang, father, and your spiritual sons, Khedrupche and Gyaltsabche, together with your lineage lamas, all the objects of refuge of the infinite realms, please bestow upon us now the virtue and goodness to accomplish this prayer. In holding, in upholding, and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make this request. You are the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, gurus in general, while you strove exclusively for the welfare of both the victorious one's teachings, the Buddhist teachings, and for the welfare of living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. At this point, I lost hope. I was bereft. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truths of the oceanic blessings of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the bodhisattvas, the offspring of the conquerors, may the smile of a new reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for us fortunate disciples. And for all of our spiritual friends, you who are my eyes for viewing all the infinite scriptures, supreme gateways for fortunate ones like ourselves traveling to liberation, so fortunate to have found spiritual friends, engaging as you do with skillful means moved by mercy, illuminating spiritual friends. The implication is please live long and stable lives. So I will leave you to do further dedications if you want, the emptiness of the three spheres, sealing the dedication, this conventional dedication in the emptiness of the three spheres, contemplating Chache Lesum, how that's related to that. And also, if you have a chance to recite any more verses from the dedication chapter of the Bodhisattva Charyavatara to solidify the merits that we created in the various rituals we did for the sake of William, who passed away, and dedicating our merits and also dedicating them to all sentient beings, all of these great goals, and particularly for his future success. So I look forward to seeing you next Monday, some of you who have the time, as they say in Silicon Valley, those of you who have the bandwidth, and hope to see all of you next Saturday.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Thanks
Thank you,
so
Venerable
much.
George.
Thank
See
you,
you
Venerable
soon.
George.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Thank you, Venerable George.